Hey guys, so welcome back. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed my little tour of the Pampohan River Park. It was really meaningful to go to some of the spots that we really analyzed in detail from the CCTV footage and heard other people really dissect, and for us to also interpret and analyze together. And it was a bit creepy, it really did feel like a jolt of weird energy to touch that tree. And you guys mentioned, I think even more than what I realized about the ducks when they didn't really move their gaze. That I think was really poignant to point out when you guys said that they didn't even really change their glances. And that is something that I noticed after you guys told me about that, because birds usually turn their heads a lot, I think. At least birds do. Anyhow, so I think right now we're at a critical juncture. If you're thinking about people pulling shenanigans, the reason why they want to end things quickly, especially if they're paying other people off, is that the money chain needs to be together. You need to hold it together until everything is wrapped up, because that money chain has a tendency to break. It has a tendency to fall apart because a lot of loyalty there is manufactured quickly for a quick buck. There are parts of it where you guys are tied, probably because you know each other, you've worked together, but there's a lot of other points in that chain that you have to pick up along the way. You have to bribe people along the way, unexpected things that pop up where you have to convince, cajole, and get people to do things that they're not comfortable with, and you have to pay them off, and they might turn on you. That's why you really have to wrap things up quickly and unexpectedly. That gives an opportunity for people like SJM's father to try to shake down this this paid off network, essentially. So if you kind of stress the system a little bit, there might be key points that break, like the fisherman, like the janitor. If you keep pressing on those buttons, they may break, and they may speak, they may spill, they may not be able to handle the pressure. And I think part of this strategy could be, in fact, suing Hot Daddy Show on SBS for defamation. So I mentioned a few episodes ago that SJM's father wrote on his own blog about how pissed off he has been about that broadcast. You know, unanswered questions. We've been calling it Hot Daddy Show because, yes, it is Hot Daddy, that really famous actor who has been hosting this show for, I believe, decades now, and it is an extremely popular show. It's like unsolved mysteries, cold case files, like real life unsolved cases, except everybody was shocked by this episode because it was so fresh. It wasn't even like 1 or 2 months old, and it wasn't even wrapped up, and they did a show on it as if it was an unsolved cold case. Usually the topics that they select are like years, decades old. Like, you know, the evidence is so old, and like, you know, the reenactments, they have to get like old cars, they have to get like cassette tapes or CD players, you know, like they have to go back in retro time. And this was not, you know, even a few weeks ago. So this show appeals to people in their 40s. That age demographic is moms. That age demographic hits right at the people most concerned about the Jung Min case, the people who are most related in terms of their feelings to Jung Min, and looking at this case seeing like, wow, that could be me, that could be my son. And when they went after a lot of the YouTubers and lumped them all together and said that they were fake news, they went after their own audience base. Because part of this show, when they went in and they attacked all YouTubers, of course there's like crazy YouTubers saying like some weird theories, and they should be attacked as fake news. They should be. And legitimately so. But there are other YouTubers bringing the facts, bringing analysis, and calling out even other YouTubers faster than the mainstream media, faster than unanswered questions. But they lumped all of them together. And the thing is, when you do that, SBS Hot Daddy, you are insulting your own audience, because the same people who tune in to watch you are watching the YouTube channels. And they're watching actually both of them. They're watching the shady stuff and they're watching the legitimate stuff. And you are insulting the intelligence of your own audience. So that's a very, 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 very not so good move. And so this episode alone, like I said in the previous episode, I think when we covered it under the fake daddy interview, it grabbed about 11%. And that's double their normal 4 to 5% average audience rating. So a lot of people tuned in, which meant they spread a lot more fake news of their own that evening on broadcast television, not internet, not digital, but on broadcast television. They maligned, defamed Jung Min, the memory, the reputation, the image, and by extension, the father and mother. And I believe they should sue SBS. Remember, we went over in a different episode because Mr. A's family is so happy. They're just like sending threats out everywhere as if they're just kind of like a Nigerian like email fisher. Well, SBS has defamed the memory of a dead person. Because why? In their show, we're going to go over this, but the main thesis point is that throughout their program, and this is outlined in the way that SJM's father complained in his blog, they made SJM look like a suicidal, drunk hobo that would just decide to walk into a river to kill himself. And we all know that from the evidence we have seen thus far, that is probably highly unlikely, and thus far from the police investigation, that is not the conclusion that they have been able to reach. So how was that the case where this show is trying to line up this sort of image of the child or the son to be some sort of drunk alcoholic that was way past his alcoholic limit and would be out of his mind and just walk into the river? They reenacted the whole entire evening using their own actors when they had CCTV camera footage that they did not need to reenact. They purposefully reenacted scenes that were directly different from the actual reality to make up a false narrative. They changed facts and they created a different story that made SJM look like a suicidal drunk. And for that, I think the family should sue Hot Daddy's show. They really should. So let's go into some of the details. So first of all, the main problem was that this show was not about solving a cold case. Now that is the strangest premise if you're going to look at how this show markedly differed from the way that the show is usually structured. Usually you're trying to solve a murder, right? But this was trying to solve how a current living person is not guilty, right? If you're looking at the way that this show was structured, they were trying to prove that there is no way that Mr. A was guilty. But Mr. A, like we said, is not even a suspect. He is not an official suspect, so he should not have been even the focus or the star of the show. The focus and the star of the show should have been Jung Min and his disappearance. It should have been trying to uncover the clues about what happened to Jung Min. It should not have been, let's follow Mr. A's day. It literally was, let's follow Mr. A and see how he had a very happy evening that turned into something crazy and there was nothing that he did wrong. Oh my God. As a subplot, his friend died. That is not how the show should have gone. And as a producer, you should have known that there was something wrong with the way that that show had been aired in that way. Unless you had an agenda of your own to make SJM look like a suicidal drunk. So there have been a lot of accusations that this was one-sided broadcasting, and that's a Korean term that they were saying, like, this is one-sided broadcasting because all of the experts that you brought in were only looking at the possibility that there was some sort of crime committed by Mr. A, and we're trying to show that it wasn't Mr. A's fault, and that the facts that would prove it was that Mr. A was not wet. If Mr. A was not wet, then therefore there is no evidence that Mr. A could have done it, and therefore that's the end of the story. Again, this story should not have been about Mr. A. This story is about SJM. We still don't know why SJM got into the river, how he got into there, but we do know that this show was trying to set up all of the elements to suggest that SJM was a suicidal drunk, that there was a great possibility that he would just walk into the river and drown himself. And we know that this is not even supported by the evidence of the CCTV cameras that were even presented in the show, the evidence that has been presented in the police report, and that the evidence that has been found later after the show has aired. Okay, let's go over some of the reenactments that created a very false narrative that defamed SJM and helped to support a false narrative that Mr. A tried to wake up a suicidally drunk SJM and that he innocently just walked out of the park. So first of all, there was that reenactment of him trying to wake up SJM on the grassy knoll while he was on the phone with his parents. See, he was like this and then trying to shake his friend SJM awake, when we know that that is completely false and untrue. And in the police report, there was even photographic evidence and textual evidence that that was not the case. And I believe that that report was already available to the producers when they were making this documentary. The mid-investigation police report that we all had access to, that is on the Seoul Metropolitan Police Station's website and also on the Seoulite.com. You can download that and see for yourself the police report that says that Mr. A was alone. He was by himself, and there's a photo to prove it, that he was by himself at 3:38 a.m. calling his parents. He was not there waking up SJM. In fact, SJM was not present. In fact, like we said before, witness number 1 was not present. And witness number 1 was the only witness that said SJM was still alive and on the grassy knoll at that time. So We have a witness that we cannot believe, and therefore we have no evidence that SJM was on the grassy knoll at that time. Most likely he had fallen over at 3:31, 3:32 and not gotten back up. However, what that reenactment did was create in the minds of the viewers that SJM had drank too much and couldn't wake up, and that Mr. A was being a dutiful friend trying to wake him up, and that Mr. A's testimony could be 100% trusted. Next, the reenactment of Mr. A leaving the park from his walk out of the woods through the bunny tunnel. That did not need a reenactment because we have the very clear CCTV footage with the actual timestamp. They even got the timestamp wrong. They put down 4:25 a.m., I believe, when it was 4:32 a.m. It made absolutely no sense. Because if you remember, they also testified that somebody woke him up at 4:27 a.m. So if he woke up at 4:27 a.m., how is he supposed to be walking out of the park at 4:25 a.m.? You see? But you know how it does make sense? Remember in his original testimony, he said somebody woke him up at 4:20 a.m.? So in order for that to make sense, right? It would take a little bit, about 5 minutes to walk down there. So he would be walking out at 4:25. So that producer or whoever was in charge of those notes probably had the first draft and said, oh yeah, 4:25. Yeah, that's when he left. They forgot to probably change it. So in that reenactment in the bunny tunnel, as we have shown in a previous episode here, they made Mr. A look so drunk in order to support his claim that he was blacked out for 8 hours. If he was blacked out for 8 hours, that means he couldn't remember a thing, and that we should just believe him in his testimony, that we don't have to really grill him on what happened between 3:30 to 4:30 a.m., the critical missing hour, and just believe that he was sleeping. Now, apparently, we have to look into this a little bit more, but there may be a photo of him around 4 a.m. where he is wandering around the grassy knoll or the riverbank area awake. So was he awake, or was he sleeping as he said? Or does he sleepwalk? Who knows? So we really do have to investigate further this critical time period between 3:37 and 4:30. We really do have to find a way to question him on that. But back to this whole defamation of making SJM look like a suicidal drunk. The autopsy report of his blood alcohol concentration. Now, this TV show reported the blood alcohol concentration level at 0.154. Now, 0.154 was the reported BAC, but there was a huge asterisk. It said that the actual BAC was between 0.105 to 0.148, because after the body decomposes, natural blood alcohol concentration goes up no matter if you drank alcohol or not. So let's say grandma or grandpa passes away, they didn't drink anything before they died. You test their blood, they will have a BAC that is elevated as if they drank, because there are things in your body that decompose that naturally turn into alcohol. And so at that blood alcohol concentration level, you're not going to go crazy and you're not going to go into the river. However, every single expert that they asked and recorded on their show said that, oh yeah, well, at 0.15, that's kind of crazy, you know, like, yeah, that's when you go cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. And so they were making it look like he would be someone out of his mind. And perhaps if he was having sad suicidal thoughts, that at that blood alcohol concentration level, sure, if the river looked so inviting and refreshing, maybe he'd be walking right into it and then drowning. See, you're setting up this false image and narrative, and you are maligning and defaming SJM. So for that type of manipulation, I think the family should definitely look into getting a lawyer. Also, the KakaoTalk messages between SJM and Mr. A, that was the first indication that SJM's father was really unhappy with Hot Daddy's show. When he saw the way that they had edited the interaction and the exchange between Mr. A and SJM, it made it look like SJM was such like an eager beaver wanting to drink with Mr. A, when that was the total opposite. Even SJM had put up this emoticon of a yellow card saying like, whoa buddy, slow down, I can't go out and just drink on a whim, just so impromptu. And remember, he was having a side conversation with another friend, basically calling Mr. A like, you know, like, what the hell is going on with him? Like, why is he saying like, let's go drink all of a sudden? It's late. Why do I have to go? But since he was a nice guy, and I don't know why exactly he said yes, but Mr. A was trying to convince him really hard, and he was just like doing all that he could to persuade him, and SJM just said yes, I guess. In any event, SJM's father was really upset with the way that SBS had made his son look, and so that's why he published all of the text messages from start to finish, because he was not happy with the way that that show was portraying his son, which basically is the fundamental blocks of defamation. So, SJM's father, I think you should really look into getting a lawyer and getting that suit ready. Getting that suit ready for, you know, suing SBS Hot Daddy show. And we did go over the damages that you could probably receive from a suit like this. It's not that much. That's probably why he's not really doing it, because the lawyer fee might actually even be more than what you can receive from SBS. So if you defame somebody who's dead, it's basically like 2 years in jail or a 5 million won fine, which is less than $5,000. So they could probably just get $5,000 from SBS. But if they drag this out long, they can really do a lot of damage to the show that's worth a lot more than $5,000. Okay, like if it really starts to damage the show, this is like a staple, dependable show that probably brings in a steady source of dependable advertising revenue and a steady paycheck for Hot Daddy. And if that is threatened, that is a lot more than $5,000. And if you drag this suit out, I'm sure that perhaps SBS would probably want to settle for more than $5,000. But I think this is not about the money. Take a page book from, you know, our Mr. Entertainment lawyer that digs and looks like he's like either gonna yell or cry at the same time, and try to like extract information from the show. What information you can get out of the sources that they talk to, like the fishermen, like some of the other really suspect people that they had to build the show, the sources that they got from the CCTVs. and see if they can get something out of it and really start to rattle the cages somehow through the back and forth of the lawsuit and the people. You might be able to uncover more information than you are expecting and start to rattle a few cages to try to break down this money chain, this back dealing of, people paying each other off. Because I will tell you, people will get tired and they will ask for more money, and oftentimes the more money is not always there, or people are like gonna somehow turn on each other, promise like maybe $10, but then only give $5, and then that guy gets mad, and then they turn. So that's what you want to happen. You want to have it happen where they're fighting with each other, create a stressful situation where they start to fight with each other. Once they start to fight with each other, it creates an opportunity where eventually one of them will want to talk. And once one of them wants to talk, you will start to get the truth. So I think it's going to be critically important for SJM's father to try to get a suit going against SBS. So I'll recommend the following three-prong strategy on how SJM's father should do this, should he be listening. Number one, I think he should call Mr. Shin from that YouTube channel, Shinee Hansu, to ask him how he should go about such a procedure, since he's so well versed in that sort of area, and if he has any recommendations for lawyers or law firms, and maybe even one of his own sponsors, like that Black Angus steak company can sponsor him with the legal fees or whatnot to go about making this lawsuit. Because Mr. Shin is probably also one of the YouTubers that got roped into being defamed as well by this show, and so he probably also has some skin in this game. He doesn't want to be oh yeah, remember, he was, and they got mad too. Especially the Harry Potter reporter, he got mad as well, and especially since he even said his own parents are actual audience watchers of SBS News. Remember, he was saying yeah, my parents watch SBS News. Now see, that's what I'm saying, you Hot Daddy, you really messed up, because your audience, that's your people, your people you pissed off from the way that you did that show. That's your audience. And so remember, when they attacked Shinee Hansu and Mr. Shin's channel, they even played some of the clips from that channel, and when they played Harry Potter's clip, they sped up his voice and they made him sound like this or something like that, like a chipmunk, and he was just so pissed off. They're he was I already have a high-pitched voice, and they made me sound like some elf from, I don't know, Lord of the Rings or something. And I was just oh man, that kind of sucks. So anyway, so I think you should contact Mr. Shin and see if he can help you out to try to approach how you would go about a defamation case, because he gets a lot of defamation suits on that side. So see how you can just reverse it and use it in a sense where you can kind of see how you can do this, not necessarily to win a defamation case, but to see if you can use it to extract information, and also to create a situation where you are lengthening the time that this is in the public sphere, and also where you are trying to put stress on the other party. Second, I think you should actually contact our other a little bit controversial YouTuber, that entertainment reporter guy that hates celebrities who flex and have boy toys, and he hates the police department. Remember, he hates corrupt police. I think he should contact him and ask for some advice on how to deal with this type of situation, because I'm sure that reporter knows a lot more. And all I'm going to say is that I think SJM's father should ask this reporter, hey, can you just look into the theory that there might be some VIP assholes here?
Can find telltale traces.
Just that.
homosexuality,
Leave
affairs,
it at
drugs.
that.
So he begins selling
Don't
his
ask for
information.
anything more. And if there is something, there will be something. There will be a train wreck. I don't know how I feel exactly about that, but there will definitely be a train wreck. There will be a lot of stuff. And he's the reporter to, decide whether to come out with it or not. And I think maybe that might be helpful to create some sort of way to stress the system where it starts to crack it a little bit. And third, perhaps SJM's father should call me, because I think now it's time for him to go to the New York Times. And I'm not promising anything, but I think I could at least get him a meeting with an editor there from the Seoul Bureau. So I know at least one editor from the Seoul Bureau. They just moved here, and I'm friends with one of the guys who does the foreign press relations over at the Blue House, and he's very instrumental in setting up the relationship between New York Times and their settling of their Asia bureau in Korea. They moved out of Hong Kong because of the restriction of press freedoms there. And so they're here in Korea, in Seoul. They chose Seoul to be the hub of their Asian operation. So it's a big deal for them to be in Korea. And so now I think this story perhaps needs to be told on a greater level to an international audience, and perhaps SJM's father would like to have a meeting with the New York Times and get his story out there, and to have, a very sobering account of what's going on. Because I believe that this can touch on many different facets, as you guys have all even mentioned, just from your comments on this channel, how around the world this has really touched the hearts of many of you guys. So in any case, I think it all starts with SJM's father deciding whether or not he really wants to take this to the next level, because he's already gotten it started. He is upset about the way that the memory of his son has been portrayed by that show on SBS in particular. He didn't name it, but essentially he was saying that SBS has defamed his son. So now I think he just needs to make it official and take it to the legal level, to the next level. So the next level would be finding a lawyer. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay safe. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.